Today, we're going to get into the true story of Jim Carroll. It's an incredibly powerful and, honestly, a cautionary tale about talent, about grief, and how one single decision can completely change the entire course of a life.
And really, that's the question at the heart of Jim's entire journey. It just hangs over every single choice he makes, and it turns a story that was full of so much promise into a desperate, desperate fight just to survive.
So, to really understand how Jim fell so hard, you have to know who he was before it all went wrong. And he wasn't just one thing. Not at all. He was a total walking contradiction. A kid who was just brimming with talent, but also had an equal amount of rebellious fire.
I mean, you had these two completely different paths just pulling at him. On the basketball court, he was an absolute star, a bright future ahead. But off the court, he was out there chasing cheap thrills, really flirting with danger. He was basically a teenager living in two completely different worlds at the same time.
The thing about Jim is he was just so complex. On one hand, he's the star athlete, leading his team. He's also the ringleader of his crew, Pedro, Mickey, and Neutron, and they're out committing petty crimes. But then, underneath all of that, there was a third Jim, a writer, secretly pouring all of his thoughts and fears into a private diary that would one day pretty much become his lifeline.
But for all his rebellion, it wasn't just the mischief that sent him over the edge. It was something much deeper. It was heartbreak that became the tragic turning point in his life.
Jim's closest friend in the world was a boy named Bobby. But Bobby got leukemia, and at just 16 years old, the disease took him. Watching his best friend, a kid he'd known since he was 3, just waste away, it left Jim completely shattered. He was totally lost.
And from there, everything happened frighteningly fast. The grief was just all-consuming. He couldn't handle the emotional agony, so he started looking for an escape, any escape. And in a desperate attempt to just feel, anything else, he tried heroin for the very first time.
And this right here, this is why addiction is so terrifyingly effective. Because the drug worked. For just a few moments, all that pain that was crushing him just vanished. It was replaced by this euphoric rush, a feeling of peace he was so desperately craving. And that deceptive relief, that was the hook, and it set in deep.
From that very first taste, the fall was brutal. And it was swift. The promising young athlete, the secret writer, he was about to be completely erased, replaced by someone he wouldn't even recognize. A desperate addict living on the streets. And the pillars of his life just crumbled one by one. His drug use got him kicked off the basketball team. Then he gets caught with pills and, boom, expelled from school. When his mother found his stash, she confronted him, and in this final heartbreaking moment, she threw him out. She even tossed his basketball trophy into the street. His old life was quite literally in the trash.
So now his life had a new, terrifyingly simple routine. It was just this vicious cycle dictated completely by the drug. First, the craving would hit, this all-consuming need. That, of course, required money, which he didn't have. So he turned to crime, mugging, stealing, whatever it took. And every single dollar went right to the next fix, and the cycle would just start all over again.
And the very same friends who had joined him on this dark path, they started to disappear. Pedro got arrested during a robbery that went wrong. Later, Mickey got nabbed by the cops. The net was closing in, and Jim was getting more and more alone.
And this quote, this really captures his rock bottom. He's begging for drug money from a girl he used to make fun of. To get enough cash for a fix, he resorts to prostitution in a public bathroom. All the pride, the talent, the promise he once had, it was all just gone. Sacrificed for the next high.
So we find him here half dead on a snowy basketball court, the very place that once was supposed to be his future. He's hallucinating, freezing, completely broken. And you just have to ask, is this it? Is this how his story ends?
But it wasn't the end. Right there, in his absolute darkest moment, a little flicker of hope appeared. This final chapter is all about the long, grueling climb back into the light and the incredible legacy he managed to build from the ruins of his life. An older man named Reggie, someone who used to play basketball with Jim, finds him on that court. And instead of just walking away, he takes Jim home. Why would he do that? Well, as Reggie explains it, someone once helped me too. It's this incredible act of grace from a near stranger that gives Jim his first real chance to get clean. But getting clean was not that simple. After running out of Reggie's house to find drugs, Jim ends up at his mother's door, begging for money. And in a final, painful act of love, she calls the police on him. She knew that jail might be the only place he could actually get clean. He was sentenced to 6 months.
Okay, so after 6 months, he's out. He's clean, he goes to a venue where he's supposed to read from his diary for the first time. And who's waiting for him right outside? His old friend Pedro, holding out a bag of drugs. A quick, easy ticket right back to the life he just escaped. This is the ultimate test.
And this is it. This is the defining moment of his new life. He looks at the drugs, he looks at his friend, and he says no. He literally turns his back on his past and walks through those doors, onto the stage, choosing to face his future by sharing his story.
And what a future it turned out to be. He turned that secret diary into the Basketball Diaries, a book that became a classic. He became a critically acclaimed poet and a pioneering punk rock musician. He somehow managed to transform all of that pain and darkness into powerful, incredible art.
In the end, this was Jim Carroll's own conclusion. Reggie helped, sure. Prison forced him to get sober for a bit, but that final choice, the one that really stuck, it had to come from inside him. His story is just this brutal, honest testament to how far a person can fall, but it's also an incredibly powerful reminder of the strength it takes to climb all the way back up.